Hokinak semdol kake mofaseda.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Midweek show, Talking in Stations. I am your host, Silver Suspiria. Tonight we are off schedule, and I'm joined by Aria from TNT. Hi, Aria.
Hello, everyone.
And some exciting guests tonight. We have Nate Alto
Hello.
from Pen is Out,
Hello.
and Kayla, Capital Specialist, also from Pen is Out, CEO of Victory or whatever.
Hello. Hello.
Exciting show for me today because I'm glad we got this in, guys. Because for me personally, I spent a lot of time fighting both with you guys and against you guys, and with our ongoing series of what does LoSec look like in 2020, I think Pen is Out plays a pretty substantial part in how that looks. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of impact in the Black Rise area. We tend to be lazy and not want to go far from home. More than 5 jumps, and we get a little scared and want to return. But we were kind of active in that area for LoSec. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's give me a little bit of history background on Pen is Out. How did you guys get started? Where'd your origins from? Both you personally and as a corporation into an alliance.
Sure. So I'll talk about myself and then the alliance, and then Kala can talk about VWAT joining, I guess. So I started playing even like 2015 or something in faction warfare and joined Rapid Withdrawal about 2 months into that. And then after some time in Rapid Withdrawal, we wanted to do the alliance tournament. So we put together an alliance just for that. And the idea was come up with a name that would be entertaining when CCP had to say it, whether they said the name or the ticker, and I think we succeeded with Pen is Out and Wangs as the ticker. And then at that point,
can we mention
Yeah.
AT a little bit? So you guys did really well in the AT in the first couple of years, right? Like you kind of were like this.
Yeah. So the first year we came, I think it was like 5th. It was like I think it was a tie, but then somehow we were 5th, not 4th, so no AT ships. And then the second year, I think we only did 2 years because no more AT. But we did poorly that year. Actually, I think we lost like second or third round.
Oh, okay. And that first year though, can we talk about the commercial you tried to get through? Because I thought that was hilarious.
What was that? The Avatar one?
No, it was a thorax, but you've grown up since thorax.
The thorax going into the Avatar, though.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. It was a thorax entering the hole in the front of the Avatar, and that one did not air. We also got our CEO banned with Alliance logo submissions for a week or 2.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's pretty funny.
So now we have a lion as our logo instead of things we would have liked instead.
Right. But no, I enjoyed watching you guys in the AT, and I'm hoping if they come back, would there be plans? And I know we're like sidetracking a bit, but would you be interested in flying again?
Yeah, either with our current members, or I bet we could have 10 people probably resubscribe just if the AT came back. They don't play unless there's a tournament because
Right.
they just don't find anything else fun. We have quite a few people who like the weekly get on Saturday and then scrim all day and then eventually do the AT thing.
Gotcha.
So, we did the AT and that's why I made an alliance, but then it kind of grew organically. We never sought out Corps to join. They just kind of saw what we were doing and then asked if they could come along. Usually groups we knew. Either we had fought them or, fought with them on occasion. Eventually we left Galmill. Somewhere in the middle there was like a Galmill civil war against us because of our agreement and standing with Snuffed Out. which if you want to talk about, we can. But basically, we were blue to snuffed out during World War B, and then just kept it afterwards
Yeah,
for until they folded.
I think that's important to mention with you guys because it was pretty critical even to where you are today, right? Like, that's sort of what got you heading away from faction warfare, along with gameplay mechanics, probably.
Yeah, so the blue is snuffed out. So in World War B, basically they got a chunk of ISK, right? And then little known fact is that, so basically there was a mail from our CEO that went out saying, hey, we're going to be blue to snuffed out and blah, blah, blah. What he didn't mention was that they were paying us for that to help them specifically in that, all that stuff. That was around the time the command destroyers came out. So we did bush fleets, and we got really good at kind of what now is, I guess, Pando's snatch fleet. But basically you set up 500 off, chain jump in, and then you also pair that up with like ECM burst ships, and you can just chain jump your whole fleet in and pull a bunch off. At the time, we didn't really tackle and kill things unless we only got like one or two. We just ECM bursted to get ourselves out and then set up again. But then, after that, we stayed blue because we liked the people. And that enabled us to grow both our FCs. We had really good FCs, and we still do. Developed from faction warfare because that environment used to, and not so much anymore, but it used to be really good for developing FCs who were very strong under pressure. But the relationship with Snuffed Out let us grow some FCs who could do, including myself, could then do strong capital fleets and supers and titans and all that, which we probably wouldn't have ever done without that agreement, or we would have got to much later.
Right. So what was Galmel at the time didn't appreciate that stance because it was viewed that Snuff was sort of oppressive to them in the area and sort of the big bad wolf in the backyard, right?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, Wolf's Dragoon did weekly T3C fleets and, utilized cap fleets and stuff, but we always had a kind of hard, tough relationship with Galmel. We never really wanted to do what everyone else was doing. We wanted to be independent. And I mean, at the time we formed our alliance, I think we were pulling without effort 50 or 60 rapid withdrawal pilots into a fleet. So we were kind of trying to be more independent. And we just, we never really got on that well with Galmel. We worked together when we needed to, but tried to do things on our own. But then the Snuff relationship changed that a bit because we worked with Snuff pretty consistently.
Right. Yes, I remember those days. And then at some point after you left, or were you in faction warfare when you dabbled into the first bit of Solve there in Cloud Ring? Or
no, we might have been because it was Galmelistan.
Right.
We probably were. I don't know. I can't actually remember. We probably were in faction warfare. And then at some point we decided to leave faction warfare because with Citadels coming in, we just felt there wasn't any point. We took an alliance vote, and it was pretty unanimous that we didn't want to be in faction warfare. I think it was like 90-10 or something. So we left. We did at the time blew up all of Galmel. On our way out, we said, hey, we just don't want to deal with the mechanics anymore. We don't really care about it. So we're just going to put you guys blue so we can keep flying together when we want to, but we aren't doing faction warfare.
Yeah, that's a common thread amongst a lot of older faction warfare groups. The Citadel mechanics sort of stymied any of the real reasons why you fight in faction warfare. And
I think CCP took a step in the right direction with the recent tethering change, but they need to take that a bit farther and actually restrict Citadel docking. It's not like it's some crazy thing. The station docking was restricted. When they brought in Citadels, they should have just also restricted Citadel docking based on who owns the system. Regardless of who owns the Citadel, that shouldn't be a factor.
Right, yeah. So that's been a thing I even asked at FanFest like 2 years ago at the round table, right? Like, the claim was, well, it's a little bit difficult because you have pirate citadels. So I'm like, yeah, but well, how is that different than NPC stations? You know, like
Right, exactly. And our
anybody owns them, right?
yeah, exactly. And our guys, I think they announced Citadels at eVegas, and we had quite a few people. We still do, but had quite a few people attending eVegas, and they tried to talk to CCP developers and tell them, hey, this isn't going to work, and you have to make them like stations if you want faction warfare to keep working the way it does. And I think faction warfare has changed. I don't think it'll ever go back to the way it used to be, where you just smash ships into each other all day long. When I started playing, we would log into Tama, get on at like, I don't know, 6 p.m., log into Tama and just smash ships nonstop until 10 p.m. and then go to bed and then get back on the next day. And that I don't think we'll ever see that from faction warfare again.
No, I agree. And it's some of the best fun I ever had in the game. And a lot of people criticize it, like, oh yeah, you're just smashing T1 frigates into each other. Yes, that's true, but it's still like Fast and Furious, right? You're in and out of plexes and running around and playing games, and well, that's fun. But I do have hope that what they're doing with Tether was just like a test, right? Like, can we restrict based on faction warfare control and people in faction warfare without breaking anything? Like, I sort of like this Talos approach, which is very iterative, right? Try something small and like hopefully push it along further. Do you agree? Like,
Yeah,
with all these little
I
changes that are
agree.
in a direction.
I agree, and I don't know if Kayla has a different opinion, but I think, they started out well, but like shield slaves, for example, were a step in the wrong direction. I don't
Oof,
think that
yeah.
should have been like a Team Talos thing. It should have been a more long-term development. I know they've been talking about shield slaves forever, but it's like, why use that team for something like shield slaves that you've been talking about for 2 years when you could be doing other things?
Yeah. What do you think, Kayla?
In regards to shield slaves, it's pretty much the same along with Nick. We don't really have like as much of a view on faction warfare because VWAT was never really involved in the faction warfare system that much. We kind of came from Metro and did a lot of conflict with alliances like Did You Say Jump and Shadow Cartel. And we didn't join Penners Out until I guess fairly recently in the long term scheme of things. We started off joining alliances like Panic Attack and trying to build them up to do a lot more capital-based content that didn't really pan out so well. So we left and crushed. But then we kind of moved on to doing our own little attempt at the AT, fighting stuff with Siege Green, joined some more alliances, and then pretty much ended up in Tama, where we discovered our one true calling to the war was to keep Northgate secure. And everything else just kind of was driven towards that goal, which means we kind of ended up making some friends in the area. And we discovered Nate and Penners Out, and we just kind of enjoyed each other's companies. Nate is my gay lover. And so we just joined and took things from there. But in regards to the faction warfare system itself, Wang's kind of left faction warfare about a month after VWAT joining.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. So you guys have been in probably close to 2 years with Pennants Out, or a year and a half or so.
I think about a year and a half, coming up to 2 years by now.
Yeah. So you guys decide that faction warfare isn't for you. You did dip into some null stuff before you left though. I was part of Galmilistan with you there for a little while. Are you still active? I see you still have space in Cloud Ring, and Dotland calls
Yeah.
it Galmilistan still, and we should probably figure out how to fix that. But what's the deal with Solve these days?
So we went to null. Really, so Huge went to null. That was what, Big Hands, right? Magnus Digitus, or I guess that's Big Fingers.
Yeah,
But
they changed
basically,
that a few
so
times. Yeah.
Black Fox Marauders formed an alliance, and they went to null. And it looked like they were having a whole. They kicked everyone out of Cloud Ring. It looked like they were having a whole lot of fun. So I think Fed Up went to null, and then Wangs went to null, and we kind of just split up the space there, and GMVA, of course. And we kind of just split up the space out in Cloud Ring. We lived out there for a while, and then we went back to Losec. And then we did go back out when, Fed Up Space was under attack by Black Legion and Tissue.
Yeah.
And then we haven't really been back out to null since. We still have space. We still occasionally go out there because people like to Entosis it, but otherwise we try to, personally I try to avoid nullsec. I don't like it, but...
Well, you did go back out there after FedUp was attacked, right? We had a nice little spat over about a year ago.
Well, I guess, yeah. So we never went home after that, right? So we went out when FedUp was there. We stayed there until, we fought FedUp. And then FedUp left and went to Legacy.
Yeah, so Sov not really on the radar for Penance Out these days. You, other than content, you have no desire to really build an empire somewhere, right?
No, it's only for content, and the Sov life of just owning a bunch of space doesn't really suit us. It's kind of the opposite of Losec, right? Losec, nobody owns it. It's owned. It's kind of not our thing.
I see you had some Sov fights in 2017, but since the end of 2018, you guys have held Sov without any interruption. Does anyone actually attack your Sov?
Yeah, it gets into assist a lot by groups roaming through, and those we just kind of ignore the timers. Occasionally we get someone actually trying to take it, but it's usually a pretty quick thing of we go out there with small fleets, we just run some jump freighters up. We don't even need to deploy, and then we win a few fights, and then it's over. Nobody really has made a strong effort to take it.
That
Do you guys make any money with it?
Do we? Not from Sov. We have moons all over the place, including 3 in null, I think. So we make the money of 3 moons, whatever that is. I have no idea. I just pay the SRP. I don't pay attention to where we get the ISK.
Cloud Ring is kind of tough now because, for one, do you guys have an official relationship within it?
We are not blue within it, but we have a agreement around supers and titans. Specifically, they needed to move. We were causing a lot of problems with them trying to move through Cloud Ring safely or uninterrupted, kind of unintentionally causing problems. So we have an agreement so that they can do that.
Right. I see they have a jump bridge in GMVA space. In Cloud Ring there, but
and then there's the Goon Keepstar. That
right,
wasn't really an agreement. That went up under FedUp, right?
Yeah, I logged in to find that anchored in our system, and then being like, oh hi, yes, that was a very interesting time.
Yeah, they don't really ask, right?
No, but that was at the beginning of that summer war, kind of a year ago. But since then, the goons came through there and kind of glassed everything in Fade and Pureblind, right? Which are the 2 neighboring regions there. And the only other region there is Fountain, which is in it. So, there aren't many people living in Fade and Pureblind these days. A couple of small groups, but no one that would even be interested in contesting you over the Sov anyway, right? So, there's not really...
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I think you're right. There's in Pureblind Fade, there's cones. The French were there, but our Sov is USTZ. So the only person would be or group would be cones, but I don't think they really want the space. Cloud Ring's kind of one of the shittier null secs as far as I've been told. Nobody really cares for it. The real sec is low or something. Some zero numbers low.
Yeah, you're right. The true sec is not great, which means that ratting space isn't optimal. Right? You're not going to get the best ratting anoms out of Cloud Ring True Sec. And to be honest, the moon distribution, when it got redistributed, it didn't do it any justice either. There's not a whole lot of money in Cloud Ring. There's a couple good moons around, but nothing worth. And it's a transit space, right? You get goons moving from Fountain through to the north there frequently. You got the Goon Keepstar there, so there's constant traffic and disruption through that whole region. So it's
Yeah,
not
I
like
mean
you can
that's
set
your
up.
highway between Black Rise and Pure Blind and Syndicate and Found.
Yeah, there's many reasons why that doesn't work as like a home region that you'd want to sit around and make money. So what's up now, Nate? Like you guys are fairly active now. There's stuff going on Reddit, and I see you guys quite often. Like I fly up there every now and then to shoot some wangs, like as we do. But I've been out of the loop a little bit as far as the politics go, and what happened to you guys after Snuff disbanded? So you had this long-standing relationship with Snuff. You worked together quite often. You flew together all the time, and then they disband. How did that go for you guys?
Yeah, so Snuff disbanding came at an interesting. So I don't actually remember when they disbanded, but I think it was around the summer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was more recent.
I think late
But
summer.
basically, around that time, slightly before that, we started taking, kind of under Roy Henry's direction, a new approach, in my opinion, to the area. So Snuff had deployed, I think. And so we were really the only ones in the area that frequently used capitals and supers and whatever. So we kind of went with a new approach where we just smashed battle cruisers into anything that showed up. So anytime we saw a fleet, we would just form harbingers and go smash into them. So that turned out to be pretty fun, and that was good during the summer lull. And then Snuff disbanded, and everyone thought there would be I think everybody called it a power vacuum, but I don't think they really realized that that's not how low sec works, because you're not taking space, right? So we ended up with some of Snuff's moons, which are the only thing of value in low sec. And I think some went to GMVA and some went to other groups, one because we don't really care for moons that are more than a few jumps away. But there's not really a power vacuum in low sec like people thought there would be, because there's just nothing to take with the current state of things. So no group tried to move in and take over, and the only group that really could anyway would be Siege Green, but them being Korean time zone, there's not much that could really go on there, with fighting us. So
Yeah, I
it's kind
guess
of
what
turned in.
people mean by power vacuum, Nate, is that Snuff always had the ability to pretty much crush anyone that came through low sec or threatened their space. They had the biggest firepower in the area. They were the big dogs on the block, right? So when they disbanded, I think everyone was wondering, well, who's going to be the next big dog on the block? Because there's always a big dog, right?
Yeah, and I think in a way, in the Black Rise Citadel region, Placid even, we've sort of filled that, but we've tried to do it a bit differently. We don't want to snuff out everyone in the area. So for example, there was some citadel, maybe an Asbel or a fort in Kanaka we put to hull, and then we just didn't show up for the hull timer because we wanted to repair so we could do it again for the fights, and stuff like that. We don't really care to kill people's things in low sec, except for maybe an Asbel where they're building a whole bunch of caps because we need SRP money. But we're taking a bit of a different approach. But I mean, we do have the power. People always looked at Wangs as weak. For example, Liberty Squad from Goons, the Thomas Lear Sig, deployed to low sec to fight Snuffed Out, and then all they did was shoot Wang Citadels because we were USTZ timed and they were USTZ. Or Shoot First did the same thing. They're oh, we're forming an anti-snuff coalition, and then they come and shoot. People always thought we were weak because we always formed with snuff, but really we can form 80 dudes in a fleet if we need to. We have a large cap force. We can drop a shit ton of Titans, I mean, relative to low sec, if we need to, but we rarely ever need to. So if that's what you mean by power vacuum, yeah, we filled it, but we're taking a different approach.
That's interesting. Now, did any of the Snuff guys move over to Penazal? I know a lot of them broke up. Like some of them are wound up over in Trigger Happy. A couple of them went over to Volta. Like they scattered to the wind a little bit, but like specifically the U.S. time zone guys were really tight with you. So how many of those Snuff guys actually wound up as Penazal?
We took one corp from Snuff. That's it.
So
The
that's
rest
interesting.
went their own way. I think we couldn't take if we took all the corps, not that they all wanted to join us, I'm not saying that, but if we did, there would be no one that would be able to fight us, even multiple groups together. We're currently at a state where it takes multiple groups to fight us in most cases, so if we took too many more people, we'd probably have an issue of never getting a fight.
Truth. Let me throw it over to Kayla over there. I haven't heard you very much, but what's your take on the current situation in LoSec right now for you guys? You guys have talked about a little bit of it. You guys have like a long-standing weird relationship with Galmil, if I can call it that, because you're often very supportive of Galmil, and then Galmil always has these internal stuff that goes on, right? Like internal politics. So, like, is there anything going on with Galmil right now and Aderon Robotics? Like, talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Aderon Robotics is kind of like has a small sort of thing out for Wangs, but really VWAT itself is not involved in the topics related to everything outside of the content itself, right? Like, pretty much we show up at any timer and we're entirely about the fight that's on grid. And to be honest, we don't really care about all the politics or the things that led up to the fight itself. It's mainly about fighting on grid and actions on grid. So we joined Penners out because there was a role that we could fill, particularly with high-skilled active tank capitals that would lead into a way of creating a lot more content, because a lot of our content lately has been on offensive structures. It's been on Asbels from Hobo, they've been on Tech 2 anti-camp Fortizars, and we're more than happy to put kind of capitals that are on grid that are capable of tanking that. And when you have a couple of capitals on an enemy Fortizar that's designed to kill them, you give them a lot of an advantage, and you give them this kind of situation where they believe it's advantageous to drop you. And that creates a lot of conflict with the kind of groups that we've been talking about lately, which is really what we're all about. Like, I don't get too involved in the politics, the roleplay, as amusing as it is. It's more, how can we get people to fight? How can we get an interesting fight? And for that endeavor, it's always been useful for me to be just throwing capitals at everything, regardless of if I die or not. Because the main thing in LoSec is content, right? Like, there's no big conflict driver. There's no the main thing about LoSec is that it's all about content. It's just why VWAT's in LoSec, and it hasn't joined any of the nullsec blocks, and it's never going to join any of the nullsec blocks.
Right.
And because you did mention Aderon Silver, just to touch on that, so I believe that, as somewhat of the leader of Wangs, but not really, because really everybody else runs the alliance. I just, people just think of me as the leader, but without everyone else running it. Like, yeah, I'm basically the paper pusher, really. Let's be honest. I don't believe in ever stopping RFCs from doing something, unless there's like a really good. So if RFCs go RF 10 Aderon Citadels and then tell Aderon, hey, you should rent our moons, I'm not going to stop them. And that's basically what happened. Is RFCs got the idea that Aderon likes to mine, so let's just kill their miners and then offer them moons to rent. And then if they don't want to rent them, we'll RF some. And then somehow, Aderon got really mad at us about that, which is understandable. And now now there's some coalition that's been forming for 2 months but hasn't RF'd a single one of our structures that is supposedly forming to fight Wangs. So
I'm looking forward to these defensive timers, but
We've,
they don't seem to be appearing.
yeah, Kel and I had talked about this before, that it's been rare that we've actually had a defensive timer. And it's so much more, well, it's more fun to do offensive. It's much more difficult, especially like forts and stuff, but actually having a defensive timer for once would be quite a bit of fun.
Right, so a little bit of drama there, right? I mean, from the outside looking in, that's pretty much what I heard had happened, right? We had attacks on Aderon mining fleets, and then was some of it due to, I think when RVB was in faction warfare, they sort of attacked GMVA Sov briefly, and did Aderon not come to their aid there? Was that any part of what sparked the interest to shoot Aderon at all?
No, there was something, I mean, I don't really know. From the outside looking at it, probably looks like it's drama based, but really we just, like our standard operations are, if you see a citadel, we shoot it just to see what happens. Like, we RF maybe 10 plus citadels. The RVB thing, I think it was actually us that Aderon didn't come help when we asked them to. It was something like we defended one of their structures, and then we had a timer and asked them to bring like whatever they wanted, but specifically EWAR, and they didn't. And that made somebody unhappy with them, so they got the rental idea that I mentioned. It was something like that, but honestly, I just don't pay that much attention to things like that.
I got it. So there's this coalition forming to retaliate. Do you guys have any idea who's in this coalition?
So I haven't logged into the game in over a month because I've been moving and stuff. But from what I've gathered, just looking at BRs after the fact and stuff, or from what I hear, it's a coalition comprised of Aderon Robotics, Malro, which is an group that formed from Aderon. And
like
they have an alliance
group,
too. I don't know the name.
I think they're in the Convocation of Empyreans now. It's Ashtaroth's group, yeah?
Yeah, so those guys, they do a lot in HiSec. Ash is always streaming it. Kayla has made Ash's life a bit difficult sometimes. And then there's like aggressively average. So you got intergalactic space hobos, Aderon Robotics, aggressively average, and that's Cruiser's Crew and Chuck. Chuck being Bastard Cartel, Chuck Norris. And then you've got sometimes Wrecking Crew, which is like Tempest Calcif and all them, and then sometimes Fed Up.
Yeah, I wouldn't lump us into that coalition there, buddy. We don't really have any interest at all. And I see your friend Arm Jita in there kept saying Aderon equals Fed Up. That's not true. Haven't been over there in
Not
like
anymore.
2 years.
Yeah.
We've been long since separated. We are Legacy Null Block now, so you can call us that if you want. But yeah, we don't really have a whole lot of interest in interfering. We do. It's content, right? And just like you guys, if there's a timer, and
Right.
we're still very good friends with Spartan from Tempest Calcif. So if he calls us and there's something interesting going on, we might fly over there to see what's going on. But no, not part of any coalition. We have our own coalition to deal with.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not saying Fed Up's part of the coalition, but you guys do show up to the timers on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't even know that if we're trying to be factual, Wrecking Crew or Calcif and their whole group is part of that coalition. I'm not sure. I don't think so because, I mean, they're in Derelict. It's a far travel for them, but they do show up to a lot of timers on that side.
Yeah, because Tempest Calcif is still Calmill, right? So
I thought.
Yeah, no, there's still faction warfare as far as I can see.
So there isn't really a Calmill component though of that coalition anymore, except for Cal.
Right.
Unless there's a group I'm not aware. Maybe Panion Dominion, but they're off time zone, aren't they?
Yeah. But I think Wrecking Crew is the same, right? They see some content. They've got some history with Ardra too, right? So there's interesting things for them to shoot at. If they can make the timer, then they'll go. Just like Fed Up, right? But we live far. We are very far. So if we don't get a wormhole, it's unlikely that we can get to the timer and anything substantial or on time even.
Yeah. So really, we welcome this coalition. I think last time they formed, due to the server issues going on, we had to call off all of our fleets this week. But they formed earlier this week, 120, and then I think there was another fleet on its way. But we welcome it. They can outform us by quite a bit, but that's not a problem. We're happy to fight their numbers, and hopefully they actually do something. It's been 2 months, and they're just like, I don't know what they're doing. They've been talking about this coalition for 2 months. I hear about it from all kinds because they keep trying to recruit more and more. I don't know why they need more, but if they ever get enough, maybe they'll actually shoot something of ours.
Well, I think the concern, not just with you, but there's been like coalitions in the past to try and fight snuff and stuff, and the biggest problem that people have faced, and with you guys, I assume it's similar, is that it's hard to answer your super capital force in low sec. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I think we're very reasonable about when we drop supers and titans in fights. So if you consider the last time titans in an actual fight was in Lattister in December, probably. And that was well calculated. The only reason we did it was because Cruiser's crew went around telling everyone, hey, come to this timer, we're going to wipe Wang's capital fleet out. So it was kind of obvious to us. All we needed to do was pre-stage Titans, and then very strategically position Sinos and Sino inhibs and stuff to get the engagement. We spent I don't know, 2 hours planning as a group exactly how we're going to do that engagement. So I think we're conscious of the fact that if we drop Titans all the time, we're just not going to get good fights. So before that, it was probably some months before really drop Titans. We have the occasional gank where we just drop whatever, but an actual conscious decision to drop Titans is a rare thing.
So I'm showing the battle report from Lattister that you mentioned, and that was one of the fights we had a good wormhole for, so we kind of flew over. And but this is a pretty substantial super cap force for somebody to fight. So yeah, you could. It's just the threat of having it is sort of a suppressor, right? So I don't know that these guys will drop such heavy capital anymore, knowing that you can have that in your back pocket, right?
And and in a way that's fine because they can form 120. Let's have a subcap fight. I have no problem with a subcap fight.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. And we've taken significant losses in cap fights. Marto, maybe a month before this fight that you're showing, we lost 80, 90 bill and killed 30. So we lost 100, even better.
That was really rough. I think it's also worth pointing out that on that battle report, it's not even that many supers and titans when you consider that the coalition that's forming against us has more supers and titans combined than is on that battle report. It's simply a case of being quite concerned at using them, because then when you're doing a super cap and a titan op between that many groups, intel just isn't a thing. So it becomes too known that you're using them.
Yeah, so I think that's actually a good point. It's worth pointing out that group, all these groups combined actually have more titans. They have Cruiser's crew, which almost all of them, as far as I'm aware, have Titan ults. I've seen them moving. I think it was 9 Titans when I saw. Hobos have a bunch of Titans. We did kill one actually on their own fort a couple months ago. They told the guy that it was safe to jump, and obviously it wasn't because no one could fly the fort. But if they actually work together in a good way, and that's kind of the advantage we have. We're one alliance. We have, usually a fleet's run by 3 people. We have good communication. We work well together because we're one group. They just have this disparate thing. So if they ever kind of figure that stuff out, they could drop more than us and be at an advantage there in super capitals.
Yeah, one of the other things that I've heard, some of this I think is, I appreciate your effort to do things a little bit differently than Snuff, but maybe people in the area are still shell shocked because Snuff would definitely press that button if they had to anytime, right? And in addition to that, I think people are a little bit worried about your relationship with Init that I was sort of hinting at before, and I wanted you to make clear, like. Is there a possibility that Init will show up? Because that's one of the things RVB said a couple weeks ago, was that Init was sort of running around shooting their not Fortizars, but structures they had in and around Lowsec when they were in faction warfare. Is that legit?
Yeah. So yeah, let me touch on that. Init, we don't talk to Init about our timers at all. They do. Well, let me rephrase that. I tell them occasionally, specifically, hey, we have this timer, don't show up. I've done that with one of their FCs who I know sometimes watches for timers in Lowsec. Because if we're planning, if we want to fight, and we can tell them not to show up on either side, that's kind of better for us because usually the fights are pretty even or we're outnumbered. But we don't ever really coordinate within it on, hey, come help us for a timer. It just doesn't happen. We don't have that relationship with them.
And I'll say from personal experience, Nate, with flying with you for so many years, there have been several cases where you've had people interested in coming to a fight that you've sort of deterred from coming in the interest of getting the fight. Right? So
Yeah, I mean, if you remember when we were fighting Calcif over and over, we were getting. I mean, remember. Oh God, there was a month where I think I lost some record number of Guardians. And we didn't call Snuff once, even though we had that option the entire time, just because we wanted the fights. I can't remember what the number was, but I think I have a corp title now for it because it was like some crazy number of Guardians to whelp in a month. For a low sec group at least, Nullsec can probably do it in one fight. It was like 50 or 60 or something. But we specifically don't, or we specifically at that time tried not to ever call Snuff in those engagements because we knew what happened. And I had conversations with like the last Spartan about that too, and he said, well, it doesn't matter because there's still the possibility, which we understand. There always is that possibility, but it is what it is. All those groups also have that possibility of calling in another block too. They all have contacts in like Horde and Goons and Test and all that.
True. That's true. And if they're really bored, they can always show up, right?
Yeah, or you get like, the good old Predator Elite third party.
Yeah. This is true. That's really all I had for you guys. Rhea, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about with Pen is Out?
No additional questions.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Nate or Kayla, about what you got going on? What's next for our draw? Are there big plans other than whatever's going to happen with this coalition?
I think we'll keep doing what we do. I mean, we occasionally deploy, but it's not really our style. Honestly, we're lazy. That's just the way it is, and we know that at this point. We've learned from failed deployments, and not even really failed, just unparticipated or lowly participated deployments. So we'll probably just stay in our area, and we have a good method for getting us fights. We shoot every Citadel we see, and we'll just keep doing that unless somebody actually comes to fight us, which hopefully this coalition finally figures it out and shoots one of our structures.
Yeah, I want to save some time to talk about one topic from Kayla when we get to something you may not know about Eve. But how do people find you, Nina? Do you have website, Discord? How do people who are interested in Pen is Out find you for recruitment?
So you go in game, right? And if you look up pen is out, there's quite a few corporations. Hive Collective, never apply to that. I don't know what those guys do.
Okay.
Reach around squad. I mean, if that's what you want, feel free to apply to that one. Victory or whatever is probably the best bet for new bros. And then Black Fox Marauders, if you have some skill points and can put up with FC who might yell at you. So
Oh,
yeah.
like my boy MP, or, is he still an angry
No,
little
I mean
badger?
Roy Henry. So if you don't have the right ship, you might get yelled at by Roy Henry. It's worth it. Probably the best corp we have. But yeah, so new bros go to Victory, whatever. If you want to go to Reach Around Squad, feel free, and then everybody else go to Black Fox Marauders. I think they require a jump freighter though, so that might make it tricky for some people.
Applications to Victory or whatever will be accepted on the North Gate at 0.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the famous VWAT / Ardra gate camp of the Norvikaiken Tamagate. I see you guys still over there quite often. Is that
Actually,
still a thing?
Yeah, that's something Kayla should really touch on. So we formed a group, and I'll let Kayla talk about it. But we have a specific task force, or a specific commission for that gate. So Kayla.
The North Gate Security Commission, tasked with an order of highest priority. And it is always securing the gate, not camping. Securing. There's a very big difference between gate camping and securing. Securing is when, no matter what comes to that gate, you make sure it's secure. For your alliance, for blue, no matter who comes to that gate at 0, we will fight it. You can be in 100-man serve fleet, and you will get engagement, because the North Gate must always be secure.
I love it. So you set up on that gate, and whoever flies through. So how often do you get like actual content on the gate? Do people come and try to break you off the gate often?
It's pretty much we're only there for the people to come and break us off. Like, we'll just, instead of chilling and talking in station, we'll chill and talk on the North Gate at 0, and we'll try and be on there for a good session, be that maybe 4 hours, or unless something comes up or anything. And the aim is always to fight whatever comes to break us up, because people have a massive advantage when you're just chilling on the gate, but they can take all the time to form specifically against you. And it's pretty rare that we've had content recently, but in the past we've had Spectre Fleet form up 100 battleships, capitals. We've had a lot of the local groups decide that they want content, and they've dropped like a bunch of capitals on us. Any roaming gang that doesn't get content in Black Rise knows that they can finish their row in Tama at the North Gate 0. It's like
Yeah, I was hoping you say
PvP.
that, because so many people, like you said, are roaming around, and then if they don't get any content, what's the answer? Oh, we'll just go to Tama and die. To be what? So
Yeah.
that is
Pretty
very
much.
interesting, and actually quite welcoming a lot of times when you're flying around for hours looking for something, and then Eve is like that. Sometimes you just don't get anything to pop off, but there's always the North Gate.
Indeed.
There's always the North Gate, and if you show up and you win some special prizes.
Wait, what?
Very special goodies.
Yeah, you have to just scour Z-Kill a little bit and see what's actually on that gate, and you'll realize that there's quite a bit of reward if you can win a fight there.
I think I've seen this. There's like nuggets in the cargo and stuff like that.
Nuggets on the ship, maybe. They tell old stories. What would they be called? Fables of the 100 billion-isk Vindicators, and you'll get instant buyback on anything you win. So you might as well just go play. It's kind of like
No, that's really cool.
or there's Dagons to kill. Just saying.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, there's always something interesting going on in the Northgate. Let's put it that way. And it is a good place if you're roaming around the area of Black Rise and Gal Mill Warzone. and you want a fun conclusion to your fleet, the boys over there will always give you a good time. That's all I had for you guys. I do want to get to one more thing, and it leads me to our ending segment. We like to end the show with something you may not know about EVE Online, whether it be lore, whether it be a mechanic thing, maybe something you do that no one knows. And I've been really wanting to get to this part. So Kayla, what's something that people may not know about EVE Online?
Ooh, something people may not know. Pins Out is actually only high-sec Care Bears because we control 90% of the Zenitra market.
Yeah, so say that again. You control what percentage of the Zenitra market?
I'd say about 90%. And we have like the majority of recent sales.
So tell me a little more about that, because, if you watch Ashtarothi stream, he's often over there doing abyssal stuff, and very often we see Penizout fleets over there. Are you actually farming these sites, controlling them to what degree? Like, how are you acquiring these things?
So it's a pretty rough. It's not something you can really run if you're being actively fucked with too hard. So that's essentially what we do to the people in high sec. But we try and maintain control of the majority of sites in high sec by either out DPSing the sites running them or actively sabotaging the fleets running them. These are bumping nested out of cap transfer range, or just making sure we have road mods on the shack to make sure we get damage. So there's a few ways that we can do it. There might also be a gang of 30 catalysts land on your nice shiny nester if I can't exactly make it to a site. Yeah, we've had a quite an extensive operation on Zanatras.
Yeah, so like this is the gameplay that's really interesting, right? Now I don't know if they fixed this, but wasn't one of your tactics like you were bumping the ships away from the triangle dread so that the dread would have perfect transversal and just murder them while you're flying around?
That was actually we did do that, yes, but
Because
the
that was
effect
brilliant.
you described is secondary, right? So because we would just bump so that it was going faster than the AB fleets that they were putting on grid.
Right, so you would bump the dread.
Bad fleets, they were just ABing at 600 ms, and we could get the dread to stay at 1800 ms. And we did that with a lot of people,
right? So you'd bump this thing with massive mass, and just it would fly off into space, and everyone would chase it.
We don't even need mass.
Or back, but at that point, the fleets had generally given up because it was like 25,000 K away. It was just, and then because they were again with really, really bad nest to cap transfer AB fits, when you're trying to chase down something like that, the rats will warp on top of like the few battleships that have micro warps and 60K away from the nesters, and then the nesters can't cap transfer and it all goes to ship.
Yeah, that I watched a few of that happen. I think one of them happened on stream, and then I was asking about it, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's awesome."
The majority of like and testing really wasn't done on stream, though. A lot of it was in low sec as well, to be honest.
Interesting. So how is the Zenitra market? Is this something that people are actually buying?
Yeah, we've moved maybe about close to 100 Zenitras so far.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Zenitra is the Triglavian dreadnought that was released, I don't know, in the springtime or so?
Close as that. It was close to, just after the winter release. And it is a good ship if you make use of its strengths, okay? The DPS of it not ideal right now. It should be coming out with a buff or a T2 gun at some point because the DPS of it is not worth the price point right now, but it does have 50% more base armor than the most tankiest dread at the moment armor-wise, which is a revelation, and still retain the resistance bonus. So you can get 20 million HP on this Sinatra.
Yeah.
What's the average price?
At the moment, it's close to 15 to 20 bill. We have sold them at 60 bill. We have sold them at 80 bill.
Wow.
And we did sell one at 140 bill.
Oh yeah, we sold the first BP on stream. There's an Archer BPC at 150, I think it was, with the help of ProGod.
That was the BPC, so a blueprint copy to build it. Yeah. That's really interesting. So you were listed as the capital specialist. Would you take 50 revelations against 50 Zunichas?
Long-suffering capital specialist. I'd just like to add that prefix. 50 revs against 50s and archers. That's a difficult one. In its current state, yes, but not with the pilots that exist.
Oh.
Because it would have to be, one, you'd specific tank both dreads, right, against each other. And the archers would still have almost 60 to 70% more buffer than the revelations, and each pilot would have to be focusing on an individual revelation. You wouldn't do the standard dread primary ways that you do normal dread pools right now. You'd have one Archer assigned to one revelation, and then that way you could probably come out on top. It would definitely be close as things are right now, but if you had the rate of fire implants, so that you're getting your ramp up a lot faster, and you have one Archer assigned to one revelation, you will lose in the first couple minutes, and then you'll level out after 3 minutes and start coming out on top.
Did Kayla get Robati for anyone else?
No, he's fine.
Okay. You guys have gotten Robati for me for some reason. Well, that's very interesting. I'm glad we brought that up. Nate, what about you? Something you may not know about EVE Online.
Yeah, well, since Kayla stole mine.
Hold on. Let me pause you for 1 second here. All right, let's do a quick mic check because you guys got all Robati on me.
Mic check.
Much better. Okay, go ahead, Nate.
Is it better now? Okay.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So I think something you may not know about Eve. So, hold on. Sorry, one of my Athenors is getting shot. That's something
By
you may not
coalition
know.
forces?
Hopefully.
Looks like it. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe they heard me. How about Tau AD when he started FCing was 7 years old?
Wow, no, I did not know that. I knew he was a young guy, but what?
But he's quit, and then he quit, right? So he quit. That's why Snuff disbanded. He quit at 15. Basically Project Mayhem until the end was however many years, and so he started at 7, quit at 15. So
interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I don't think people know quite how young Tau was. I think generally people figured he was young, but not that young. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's. I think they've talked about it a few times, like Haiwantu and Tau. When they went on, like, I forget what they're called. But Haiwantu is young too, not as young as Tau, but close.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. How about you, Araya? Do you have anything that people may not know about EVE Online?
Yeah, I have a client trick. So if you happen to log in this week and you can manage to log in, you might find that things are a little laggy and your modules don't work. If your modules aren't working, drag them to another slot on your HUD and you'll find that the active modules will start working.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I have that old trick of like you get a module that's stuck cycling or won't cycle. You just drag it to another slot or in back, and then that usually fixes the problem for whatever reason. Like that.
Yeah, it's old trick, but with this week's DDoS, it's come back to be a useful thing to know.
Yeah, the DDoS attacks. I didn't want to talk too much about it, but yeah, I mean, Nate, you mentioned before the show, and probably on the show, that you've had to cancel quite a lot of ops because
we've canceled. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. We've canceled, just looking back, 6 fleets maybe this week.
About that.
Yeah, and like some of them were major fleets. Like we had Asbel hull timers to do and stuff that we just because people couldn't log in. Like not even just like one or two guys. It's like the whole alliance can't log in. So don't.
Yeah, or it's unstable. I'm able to log in fairly reliably, but I can't stay connected. And it appears, that it's not CCP directly related. This is some sort of wider spread DDoS attack on UK ISPs, which is sort of disrupting traffic from certain areas, more areas worse than others. I think the US guys have it kind of the worst right now. But I do hope it's something that they fix, because we're in the same boat. We're supposed to be deployed, and we haven't been able to do anything in a week. And it's hard to keep that hype up when you can't do anything.
Fed up is in what, Navola? So back in Losec?
Just stationed in Navola. We're just screwing around with the Tribute region. Tribute's a really interesting region at the moment with all the little guys that have grown up. You got Trigger, Unspoken Alliance, Rotes up there, like all kinds of guys up there to mess around with. It's been really fun.
Cool.
But it's not been fun if you can't log in.
Right,
So-
exactly.
So I'm hoping it gets resolved quickly. My section for things you may not know about EVE Online, and since I'm hosting the show and it's about this, I'm going to dispense that if you hadn't noticed, Aileron Robotics left FedUp a long time ago, several months ago. FedUp has completely transformed who they are. We are no longer anything to do with LowSec, Faction Warfare, Aileron Robotics. Penn is out. We've refreshed like most of our group. We are firmly a nullsec alliance now, living in legacy space and doing our thing. So all of you out there on Reddit who keep throwing our name into there as like part of whatever goes going on with Aileron, we have nothing to do with it. So that's like my little correction on some of the things going on about Reddit. But, go ahead.
What federation are you uprising now, though?
Yeah,
If it's not the Galente Federation.
We are just fed up. It has nothing to do with Galente Federation anymore. As a lot of groups have names from their past that no longer apply. So we're just doing our own thing
We're
now.
still Wangs.
Yeah, you are still Wings. You've grown up from thoraxes to avatars, and have quite the ability over there. So that's good. That'll do it for our show today. I just wanted to make sure that everyone out there checks out Talking in Station's Discord. Always a lot of things going on there. CCPers, prominent figures around the community talking about what's going on with this DDoS attack and patch notes and anything you'd want to ask about. And our Patreon and YouTube channel, if you want to support the show. We do need equipment and stuff like that. I think next week we'll continue our series on what does LowSec look like for 2020 with Aileron Robotics. We'll talk to them and maybe get their side of this coalition that we discussed today. But for now, that's all we had, and we'll see you next week.